friends, and welcome back to 155 Books. My name is Shannon, and today I wanted to share a video with you in which I share 5 books that changed me in 2022. So this year, rather than doing a best books of 2022, I liked this idea and concept of books that had an impact on me, changed me, made me grow in 2022, as that is something that I think I'm looking for more in books as my reading tastes change. So I have got a mixture of non-fiction and fiction books, 5 altogether, to share with you today. So kicking off this list at number 1 is The Good Enough Life by Avram Alpert. I have mentioned this book so many times on my channel because it's one that I have been reading for like the last 6 months of the year, but it's also one that definitely changed me and changed my life and made me grow in 2022. I am so grateful to Princeton University Press for sending a review copy of this book my way, and like I said, I've been reading it for the last 6 months very slowly because I've been annotating it, making notes on it, because I just love this concept of the good enough life that Avram Alpert obviously lays out very clearly and in a very interesting and also in a sort of interactive way, I guess, because the author obviously in this book, like I say, sets out his arguments as to why we could and should be living what is called the good enough life, rather than, as his arguments also state, the current world today. We're living in a world where everyone is striving for greatness, and that is kind of what is causing the world's problems. And yeah, there's just so much you can learn from this. So I have learnt individually some of my own problems, including my strive for perfectionism and how that is ruining so many things in my day-to-day life, including relationships, just goal setting, living the kind of life that I do want to live, because striving for perfection is kind of setting yourself up to fail, because perfection doesn't exist. And that is one of the biggest arguments in this, in that if you try to strive for a perfect world in which everyone lives peacefully, in harmony, where no bad things happen, obviously that is never going to happen. There's always going to be natural disasters and tragic accidents, and if you come to accept that, you can then live the good enough life and be okay with this good enough kind of life. I would also say that I read this at the perfect time, or it came into my life at the perfect time, as 2022 has definitely been a very difficult year in terms of seeing how the world is coping post-pandemic, and there is several wars going on, so many different things affecting everybody's lives, and I think this kind of gave me hope in that there are things that you can do individually to improve your day-to-day life, but also things that we can do as a group that can help, the world situation as a whole. So this would not be a video of mine if I did not mention this author or a book by this author, because the second book on my list is, of course, Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. So 2022 was the year that I finally read Beautiful World, Where Are You?, which is the 3rd full-length novel by Sally Rooney. And as you guys know, I love her writing. I love both normal people and conversations with friends. Anything this woman writes, I just know I'm going to love. However, I do believe that I read this again at the perfect time in 2022. I read it in July, so halfway through the year, when again, just the world situation was so many things were happening and my mind just exploded, I guess, with all these thoughts and ideas and feelings, and I didn't know what to do with those. And reading Beautiful World, Where Are You kind of helped me deal with some of those thoughts and feelings. You're probably thinking how and why, so I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of this book to kind of explain how and why it helped me with my stream of consciousness, annoying thoughts that just would not shut up. So this one follows 4 main characters, but in terms of how it helped me, the two main characters are best friends. So there is Eileen and Alice is a writer and has recently moved away from Dublin, where Eileen, her best friend, still lives. So a lot of this book is email correspondence between the 2 best friends. It kind of starts with one of them having a random thought about something and then it turning into a really long email correspondence asking the other one's thoughts and ideas on the same kind of thing. And like I said, it just helped me realise I wasn't alone in so many of the thoughts and feelings I was having in the middle of July, and even though these are fictional characters, while reading this I did kind of feel like Sally Rooney's own thoughts and opinions were coming through these characters, so you can kind of like pinpoint it to a real person. But I also have read a lot of reviews from this book and have seen that a lot of people have related to these two characters and their random thoughts and feelings. And it does also tie into the title of the book, because it kind of is the two of them in their email correspondence questioning where is the beautiful world we once knew, kind of, I guess. So coming in at number 3 is another non-fiction book, but one a lot of you will not be surprised to see on here, and that is The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And this one I read following on from another book that may or may not be on this list, as it's mentioned in another non-fiction book I read in 2022. But this one is super short, and it essentially explains what are called the 4 agreements, which kind of are things that normally rob us of joy and happiness and the great life that, you know, we all want to live. But what I loved most about this was that it was so simplistic in the way that it explained the 4 agreements to you and how implementing them could change your life, that it absolutely blew me away because it was so simple. So there is one that I think has massively changed my life already, and that is, I think, the 2nd or 3rd agreement, that is, do not make assumptions, because I was always making assumptions about everything, about things that weren't happening anywhere near me, things like across the world, what people were thinking of me, just ridiculous assumptions all of the time, and it was massively impacting my life. It is definitely a book I can see myself going back to, and it is one, like I say, that I'm trying to implement daily because, you know, following the 4 agreements does massively change your life, and that is what I'm still trying to do. And number 4 on my list is Simple Passion by Annie Ernaux. Annie Ernaux won the Nobel Prize for Fiction in 2022, which I am so glad about, because it now means her memoirs and her writing and her books are everywhere, and I love it. I love seeing her name everywhere, because I read, obviously, Simple Passion, which is the second sort of like book / memoir I have read by Annie Ernaux. The first one I read a few years ago called Happening, but obviously I read this one in 2022, and it just reminded me of how much I adore this woman's writing and how impactful, I guess, her books can be, and memoirs, and just everything she does I think is fantastic. It's very hard to explain unless you've read one of her memoirs, but she just packs so much life into her memoirs. So Simple Passion documents a 2-year affair Annie had with a married man, and again, it's very simplistic in what it does. However, you read Annie Ernaux's work and you just think, how do I not see the world the way she does? Why do I not feel the same things as she does? Because you're reading about just her very simple life, and yes, of course, when you're having an affair with someone, there is passion in that. But even the day-to-day things, there's so much feeling in all aspects of her life, in the moment she wakes up, in the things that she's doing in her apartment, and you read it and you just feel full of life. You just see life in a completely different way through Annie's eyes. And again, I'm questioning day to day why I don't see life like that. So it is my plan in 2023 to read a lot more of Annie Ernaux's work, and again, just trying to see and live life the way Annie does. And the 5th and last book on this list is a book I could not have made this video without, and that is Healing is the New High by Vex King, as this is another non-fiction book that I read in 2022 that absolutely changed my life. Again, for the better. Essentially, this book does what it says on the tin. It's the 2nd Vex King book I have read, but this is basically a guide to overcoming emotional turmoil and finding freedom. And honestly, it was incredibly healing. I feel like I healed some very difficult things that I've had to go through in my life, and also sort of like, you know, light little things. I don't see them or feel them the same way as I used to. If they pop up in my mind, I don't run away scared. There's things that I've buried that I now am happy to talk about. It, like I said, was incredibly freeing and healing, and I would highly recommend this to everyone. And it's also one that I can see myself coming back to. In fact, it's on my list to reread in 2023 to sort of continually work through it, as healing, as Vex King explains in this book, is an ongoing process. So of course I would not be the person I am right this second if it wasn't for this book that I read in 2022. So those are some of the books that helped change me in 2022. Please leave a comment down below if there's a book that you read last year that helped change you or helped you grow, and I will add it to my want to read list. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon in my next one. Bye.